Have you ever noticed this? You hit a massive goal, a promotion, a new house, something you've worked on for years, and you feel incredible for a few weeks, maybe a few months. And then somehow you just drift back to your normal self. It's this frustrating cycle, and it can really make you feel like you're just ungrateful or broken. But what if I told you it's not a flaw in your character? It's a hidden governor in your brain.
That right there, that's not just a promise, it's a diagnosis of a feeling we all know. That sense that you're running as hard as you can, but emotionally, you're just staying in the same place. Well, it has a name, and more importantly, it has a solution. In this explainer, we are going to dismantle that hidden governor. We're going to give you the science and the exact system to take control, not for some temporary high, but to permanently, structurally raise your baseline of happiness. It is time to get off the treadmill.
Okay, here's our game plan. First, we'll unpack the happiness paradox. Then, we'll put a name to that hidden governor. From there, we'll lay out the three-part system to take back the controls. We'll even get into the science of why this actually works, and then give you the exact protocol to start today. And finally, we'll talk about how you build that new, higher baseline for good.
So, let's start with the core problem, the happiness paradox. You know, we're all taught to chase happiness out there in the world. We tell ourselves, I'll be happy when I get the job, when I buy the house, when I finally hit that goal. And yeah, for a minute we are. But then, almost like clockwork, that feeling just fades. We get pulled right back to our default emotional state by this powerful internal mechanism that most of us don't even know exists.
And you really need to get this. If you've ever felt that pang of guilt because some huge win didn't bring you lasting joy, you can let that go. Seriously. The problem isn't a lack of gratitude, it's your brain's basic programming. There's this idea in psychology called the emotional set point theory, and it basically says that each of us has a genetically influenced mood range, kind of like an emotional thermostat that we always return to. So the real question isn't just how do I get happy, it's how do I change the setting on my thermostat?
All right, let's get into the scientific diagnosis for this whole frustrating cycle. Because you can't solve a problem until you can name it and understand how it works. So let's put this invisible wall under the microscope and see what's actually blocking our path to happiness that sticks.
And here it is. The scientific name for that hidden governor is hedonic adaptation. Let's break that down. Hedonic just means relating to pleasure. Adaptation means we get used to stuff. Put them together and it means we are biologically wired to get used to good things. That new car smell, it fades. The initial thrill of a promotion, it pretty quickly becomes the day-to-day stress of the new job. That process is the invisible wall. It's what keeps us on what psychologists call the hedonic treadmill. Always running, but emotionally never really getting anywhere.
Now this slide right here, this breaks it all down. Most of us spend our lives chasing extrinsic rewards, things like money, status, praise from others. The source is external. The feeling is temporary, giving us these fragile little spikes of happiness. And the big one? We have very little control over them. But look at the other side, intrinsic activities. These are things you do just for the sake of doing them, like getting lost in a deep conversation or learning a new skill. The source is internal. The good feeling they create is sustainable. And most importantly, they are almost entirely within your control. The result isn't a fragile spike. It's a solid, robust baseline of well-being. This shift in focus is everything.
So, if hedonic adaptation is the problem, and chasing external stuff is the wrong strategy, what's the solution? Well, the answer isn't just to, think positive. It takes a structured internal plan, and that's exactly what this three-phase system is. Think of it as the engineering blueprint for rebuilding your emotional foundation from the inside out.
Here are the three core phases. It's simple. First, the audit, where we make that invisible treadmill totally visible. Second, the protocol, which is our active training to fight back against adaptation. And third, the investment, where we start to redesign our lives for happiness that actually lasts. This is the complete blueprint. Okay, phase one. Look, you can't fix what you can't see. The whole point of the audit is to prove to yourself with your own data that this emotional set point thing is real. So the next time you get a win, try this. Journal every day for a month and rate your happiness on a scale of 1 to 10. I guarantee you'll see a spike in the first few days, followed by this slow, undeniable return right back to your baseline. Seeing it for yourself, that self-awareness is the non-negotiable first step.
Phase 2 is where we really go on the offensive. The protocol is our active intervention. This isn't about just passively thinking happy thoughts. No, this is about high-effort cognitive work.
These are specific mental exercises, and we'll get to them in a minute, that systematically interrupt your brain's automatic habit of getting used to things. This is where we actively train our minds to fight back.
And that brings us to the final and maybe most important phase. Because look, mental exercises alone aren't enough for the long haul. Phase 3 is about structuring your actual life, your time, your energy, around activities that you find intrinsically rewarding. It means lining up your actions with your deepest values. So if you value community, maybe you volunteer. If you value learning, you carve out an hour a week to read a book on something that just fascinates you. This is how you build a life that naturally generates well-being, day in and day out.
Okay, so we've covered the what, now let's get into the why. Because it's one thing to know the steps, but it's a whole other level of power when you understand the scientific mechanisms that make this whole system work. This is how we literally override your brain's default programming.
So here's the key. Hedonic adaptation, it's an automatic process. It just happens. But high-effort cognitive acts, like the gratitude and savoring exercises we're going to talk about, are different. They require conscious attention. They force your prefrontal cortex, which is basically the CEO of your brain, to get involved. Doing this strengthens the CEO's ability to step in and override the automatic emotional parts of your brain, letting you deliberately hold on to positive feelings for longer. You are literally training your brain's command center. And here's what's so incredible. Your brain isn't fixed. It's constantly changing based on what you do and what you focus on. It's a principle called neuroplasticity. Every single time you consistently practice these exercises, you are physically strengthening the neural networks for positive emotion. It's just like building a muscle at the gym. The more you use a neural pathway, the stronger and more automatic it becomes. Over time, you're not just creating a temporary feeling. You're physically rewiring your brain to make positive emotion your new default state.
And finally, this whole system creates a massive psychological shift. See, a lot of people operate with an external locus of control, meaning they believe their happiness depends on outside events. This system proves to you, through your own experience, that happiness is an output of your internal choices. This shifts your locus of control inward. That dramatically boosts your self-efficacy, your belief in your own ability to handle things, and it lowers the anxiety that comes from chasing stuff you can't control. You start to realize you are the architect of your own emotional state.
Okay, we've covered the paradox, the diagnosis, the framework, and the science. Enough theory, let's get down to pure pragmatic application. These are the exact non-negotiable steps you can take, starting right now, to begin elevating your emotional set point.
Here's your direct implementation plan. It's a 3-part protocol. First, the awareness drill to prove this whole concept to yourself. Second, the core daily habit, which we call the daily gratitude and savoring stack. And third, the long-term strategy, the structural alignment investment. Let's break down each one.
Here is your first action item. The very next time something good happens in your life, take 30 seconds and write down how long you honestly expect that good feeling to last. A day, a week, a month. Then, set a calendar reminder for 1 month from that day. When that reminder pops up, check in with yourself. Be honest. This simple but super powerful drill will give you undeniable, personal proof of the hedonic treadmill at work in your own life. It is the essential first step.
Now this is the core engine of the entire system, your daily stack. It has 2 parts. First, every single morning write down 3 new, specific things you are grateful for. Not just my family, but the way my daughter laughed at that stupid joke I told this morning. Specificity forces that CEO part of your brain to work. Second, at least once a day, practice 30 seconds of savoring. When any small, pleasant moment happens, like the first taste of your morning coffee, you consciously pause and mindfully exaggerate that feeling, relive it, amplify it in your mind. This is the cognitive weightlifting that builds your new, higher baseline.
And finally, the structural piece. Let's make this real. I want you to look at your calendar for the coming week and ask yourself this one question. What is one low-leverage hour I can reallocate? An hour you typically spend on something that doesn't really serve your values, like mindlessly scrolling social media. Now consciously reallocate that 1 hour toward a value-aligned, intrinsic activity. A deep phone call with a friend. Learning something new, spending time in nature. Just try for 1 week. That's how you start to build a life that's designed to generate happiness. So, as we bring this all together, let's just lock in the ultimate lesson here. The goal isn't to chase these fleeting moments of intense joy. The real goal is to fundamentally change the foundation that your daily emotions are built on, to make sustained contentment and well-being your new normal.
And if you remember one thing, let it be this.
Stop searching for happiness as if it's some prize to be won or a destination you have to arrive at. Start treating it like a system you can engineer, a structure you can build, a skill you can practice. It is an inside job, and you have every single tool you need to be the architect.
So, let's do a quick recap. The emotional set point theory, what we talked about today, solves that core problem of hedonic adaptation and that feeling of chronic dissatisfaction. And why this matters so much is that it gives you a systematic way to activate neuroplasticity and permanently raise your baseline of happiness. This gratitude and alignment framework we laid out is the tool. It strengthens your PFC's control and, crucially, it shifts your locus of control inward for a profound sense of self-efficacy. Just remember, true productivity isn't about doing more. It's about mastering systems that make focus, and in this case, happiness, effortless.